So good morning or good night, depending on where you are, and welcome to another new video of the Is It That Bad series, where we take an album and we look at it clearly and we decide, was it that bad or was it misjudged? And again, I'm joined by series regulars, Tom the Green Man and JC Rock and Metal Reviews. How are you guys?
Oh, good.
So for today's episode, we are going to talk about an album that came out way back in November 23 of 2008, and it's this album, Guns N' Roses, Chinese Democracy. And what can you say about this album? This is an album that was, I think Axl Rose worked on this album for 13 or 14 years. Uh, am I correct, JC? Because you usually know all these facts.
Yeah, I think the original release date was supposed to be like in 1999 or something like that. But
And
yeah, but yeah, he's been talking about it like since the 90s. Yeah.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
remember, when they finally put out it's finally going to be released. I wonder, like, was anyone that hyped? Uh, I was like, okay, I'll check it out because I remember when that came out, they exclusively was selling them through Best Buy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was interesting. So uh, so you know the drill. We're gonna have 3 rounds. We're gonna discuss our first impressions of when the album came out. Then we're gonna talk about the 3 worst tracks, and then we're going to like give it a thumbs up, a thumbs down, and our final thoughts. So, JC, if you like, what were your initial thoughts of this album?
Sure, I'll start. So Guns N' Roses, I was a big fan. I think Guns N' Roses is the reason I am like a hard rock and metal fan. Appetite for Destruction came out. That was 16 years old, and that was like the album that really got me into it. So I was a big fan. Then they released the next two albums in the early 90s, those Use Your Illusion albums. Still, I listen to them. I love them. But by 1993, they released a covers album. I kind of got disinterested.
The
But
Spaghetti
I was a
Incident.
big, yeah, Spaghetti Incident. I was a big Guns N' Roses fan, but I was like in my early 20s. But by the time this album came out, I was like 37 years old. So had already been married, had 2 kids, and I just completely lost interest in this band. And that's why I didn't really like listen to it when it first came out. I think I first listened to it when it was available on streaming, which was not too long ago, because I think he blocked like this album from streaming for like a while, but then eventually they released it. And that's really all I have to say. I think it just took too long to come out. I think like if an album takes like 13 years to come out, I mean, it's not a good album. I mean, like if you think of like the greatest albums, in the history of classic rock, I mean, something like the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper, Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. I mean, these albums came out like a year after like the one like before it. I mean, the Beatles, their entire career was from like 1964 to 1970. Like everything they did was within like 7 years. So like no album needs to take 13 years. If it's taking 13 years, it's just that it has problems. I mean, or just like, like they just can't get it done. I mean, that's my opinion on it. So I'll give you my real thoughts on the album, in the next rounds. But that's my first impression of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So what about you, Tom?
Yeah, this is my first time really listening to this album. I only really know the early Guns N' Roses stuff, and the first thing I noticed was this doesn't sound much like the Guns N' Roses that I remembered. It's a bit different. And as
Yeah.
I understand, Axl Rose wanted to move into a bit more of a what he was calling at the time, I think, a contemporary music direction, bringing in more industrial, alternative rock, all those kinds of elements into the music. And you can hear that a little bit in this album. And I'll talk about the tracks when we go into the track breakdown a little bit more later on. But yeah, this album is it's a bit of a strange one to me. I mean, considering what JC is saying about how long it took the album to actually come out, and I agree with that. I think an album shouldn't really take over a decade to do, and I think you lose probably sight of it. Or, you know, as someone who likes to, you know, sometimes come up with music myself, I think, you know, if you leave it so long and come back to it and revisit, eventually the sort of, you know, the momentum, if you like, is lost a bit with what you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve. And the other thing is there were so many people involved in this album. The list, it's like a shopping list. It's just crazy how many people involved in putting together of this album. I was just reading online about it and just thinking, you know, this can't be. I think that's also a reason, maybe, that it's kind of a strange one, because it sounds like it's had a lot of different inputs as well as you kind of go through the album. Although it still, to me, is quite Axl Rose focused. Obviously, there's lots of Axl Rose vocal moments as well. And I know he was kind of a bit of a perfectionist with the album as well. So I think it's this conflict of what Axl Rose probably wanted with all these other people coming and going in this kind of revolving door situation that made it a bit of a bizarre release in the end.
Yeah, nice points for the both of them. So I actually did listen to this when it came out, because I actually went and bought it on Best Buy. So I actually bought this album. And I remember listening to it and thinking, you know, it's a mixed bag. It's a strange album because it says Guns N' Roses, but is it really Guns N' Roses? Like that's when you listen to this album, I think like having it named Guns N' Roses really set the expectation. Like, I think Axl Rose was too much. Like, Guns N' Roses could have made so many amazing albums, but the problem with Guns N' Roses, it's Axl Rose. Like, it's like the Taylor Swift song. It's me. I'm the problem. It's me. Yeah, that's Axl Rose in a nutshell. He's the problem, because like I don't know what he wanted, but like he completely destroyed the band, and he took them like and you could see that it just when you listen to the first album, Appetite for Destruction, and then when you listen to Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, you can see that they change, and he wanted more theatricality, and I think the other guys just wanted to have a rock band. Like, if you listen to the first Velvet Revolver album, I'm like, that's more Guns N' Roses than Chinese Democracy.
Yeah.
Even and it's you know, it's a great album in its own right. So yeah, I think I'll talk more about it on the other rounds, but yeah, it's a strange bag, and also like you both touch upon it, like 13 years to release an album and having I don't know how many people involved in it. It's too much. It's like this class project with so many people and no one can get like together on like what the fuck you want to do with the project, something like that.
Yeah.
So that's Chinese Democracy in a nutshell. So we're going to round 2, and we're going to talk about the worst offenders. So JC, like, what are the 3 tracks that you thought are the weakest?
Okay, my first one is Catcher in the Rye. This one, they were going for like November Rain Part 2, I thought. But it was boring and bland. I think they were just trying to like, you know, recapture that sound, but they weren't able to. I also like read that this one originally had Brian May from Queen. You know, like Tom was saying before, how like there were like all these people like involved, but then like they like took his part off from it. Like, so, I mean, like if you're like not using like Brian May on a song, then I mean it's not a good song. So the next song I have is Sorry. Another one, it was kind of slow and boring. I think they tried to make it like an epic song, and this one, I think it's like Axl Rose complaining. He's complaining about like Slash or the fans. There've been different interpretations of it, but it's just one of those songs that it just didn't work for me. And the third one is Madagascar. I think they were trying to make this like the big epic song of the album, but I think it didn't work. I just found it very boring. Just there's really like no melody, and it goes in like these different directions. There was like this industrial drum beat, and they had the Martin Luther King, and they were like using those same like Cool Hand Luke clips from that they used in Civil War, like that same thing, and it just didn't really work. I think they were trying to like make this like big like statement how like the island of Madagascar, it's off of Eastern Africa, and it's supposed to be like a metaphor from being like cast out of society and something along those lines. But this one, it just I thought it would just wasn't a good song, but I think that was like the song they were trying to make like a great song, but it just didn't work. So that's it. Those are my three picks. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. I thought the Madagascar song was about the movies. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
So, so now we're going to Tom. What are the three songs that do you think are the worst for you?
Yeah, I actually found this a little bit tricky because, as strange as I found the album, I think there's quite a few quite decent songs, or that they're written quite well. I didn't like Shackler's Revenge personally, the second track on the album. It started with this, it just sounded all together a bit like it shouldn't fit together, and I didn't really think it did fit together very well. It's like a collision of sounds and ideas. It starts off in a similar way to the way Mudvayne's Dig begins, with that sort of industrial, like jolty sound, the dun, 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 dun. And so I'm expecting Mudvayne's Dig to suddenly start, not a Guns N' Roses song. And it's like Guns N' Roses were suddenly, we're sometimes trying to be someone else. I guess it may have been Axl's influence and stuff, but it was like they were trying to be someone else. And I think that this track is a kind of demonstration of that, really, that it was a bit of and I don't think it was an okay track, not a terrible track, but just a strange one on this album. Otherwise, I agree with JC. I had Madagascar as well. It's a really quite a long interlude with all of I think the spoken word parts, all the Cool Hand Luke stuff, and it just went on a bit long, and I noticed time. Don't have too much bad to say about it apart from that. It just felt kind of just mid and indifferent. I felt indifferent to it, to be honest. And the other one I decided on was actually Riyadh and the Bedouins. And actually,
yeah.
I was really torn on this because I was torn between this and Sorry. But I think this one, again, it just, I felt very indifferent towards it. It had a reasonably good rhythm to it, but I didn't like the Axl vocal moments in this one particularly much. Even though he's not doing much different to what he normally does, I just kind of didn't like his as in this song. It's the best way I can put it, really. So yeah, those three songs are my least favorites: Shackler's Revenge, Riyadh and the Bedouins, and Madagascar, but not the film.
Not the film. The films are great.
Not the film. Yeah.
So yeah, I have a few different from you guys. So the first one that I picked is the fourth song, Street of Dreams. Just like I just have seen this part. All the love in the world couldn't save you. It's like corny ass crap. It's like he watched a little too much of Les Miserables. He's like, oh, I'm gonna do a play, and it's when I hadn't listened to this album in a long fucking time. And I'm like, I'll listen to this for that. And while I was listening to it, it's like, wow, I can't believe I bought this album. Like, it's not entirely bad, but yeah, that dream, like when he goes all like Les Miserables and it's trying to be like epic, it's just corny as hell. And I understand what you say with Shackler's Revenge. I think he was trying to mimic like a Nine Inch Nails song, but I'm sorry, only Trent Reznor can do Nine Inch Nails. And I don't know, other songs that I thought were not that great. Yeah, Madagascar, I agree. It's a long song that just doesn't do it for me at all. So I would say that one was there as well. And the other one that I would say, I would agree with JC. Sorry, it's just I'm sorry for you. It's just so corny again. It's like this is an album that he's trying to be or all industrial or all like show tunes. That's the best way to describe Chinese democracy. It's like, am I industrial or am I like, let's go to Broadway? I don't know. I can't decide. That's the thing I get when I listen to this album. So now we're going to the final round and we're gonna give it a thumbs up, a thumbs down, and our final thoughts. So JC, what are your final thoughts on this?
Okay. So like I said, I'm going to give it a thumbs down. I think it's just not a good. It's not Guns N' Roses at all. It's just Axl Rose, just trying to do something what he wants. I mean, even if it was like an Axl Rose solo album, it might have made more sense. But first of all, it's not Guns N' Roses. I think, like you were just saying, like it either wants to be industrial or it just wants to be like theatrical or show tunes, and it's neither like one nor the other. So they just like don't have a cohesive sound. And just in general, I don't think there were any songs that I liked except for one, the second
Was
to
it
last
better?
track.
No.
No, well, I guess that one I put as okay.
Yeah.
So that one was I thought better was a decent song, but I think my favorite song, which I actually like, is "This I Love," which was towards the end. I thought that was kind of a catchier song, but otherwise, and I mean, like the last song, "Prostitute." I mean, that didn't make any sense to me. But like I said, yeah. So "Better" and "This I Love" were like probably the only two songs I like. So it's just not a good album. It just like I said in the beginning, if it takes 13 years to produce it, it's just not going to be good. And so it's a thumbs down for me. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, this is an album. It's wayward to me. It's messy, but I do think that it has some of the core of this album is there. There's like some of it I think had a lot of potential to be a lot better. I mean, for me, it's an album that just didn't know what it wants to be. I think you were kind of touching on that, Hector, earlier. It just doesn't know what it wants to be. You know, does it want to be industrial rock, industrial metal, or does it want to be more of an Axl Rose, just kind of solo, clean kind of ballady album? It doesn't really know what it wants to be, and it's probably the album's biggest problem. But I don't think it's that bad. So there was enough here I liked, a bit like the situation I had with the Dream Theater album. There's like it's enough for me not to say I think it's terrible or that bad. I quite like the opening track a bit. Not didn't think it was fantastic, but it was all right. I think you said better. I liked better quite a bit actually. I thought, I would have loved that song more if it wasn't Axl maybe singing in it, but it was a good song. I thought.
You can't relate to Axl's pain.
Yeah. I actually quite like this track called IRS in this one. It was quite a good rocky
Yeah.
number.
I don't like the IRS. They take my money.
And this I love. JC mentions that's all right as well. So it's close. I mean, for me, the bar, the is it that bad? That bad is here, right? And this is about there. I'm just saving it because there's just enough that I enjoy, basically.
So it's like a phone sideways.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit.
We'll just
so yeah.
Save it.
Yeah, so I guess that just leaves my opinion. So I think the problem with this album is having the label Guns N' Roses put on it. It was just put on it to sell records, but it's not Guns N' Roses. I think this should have been named Axl Rose. Like this is me, this is my solo project, this is what I want to do. And also when this came out, he toured like 4 years for this album. And I don't know why. Like he kept touring and they haven't wrote an album since. What that does tell me, he ran out of ideas. He doesn't know, he's burnt. or he probably thought like people just want to hear the classics, and Guns N' Roses have become what I call like a legacy band. It's like a nostalgia act, if you will. Like no one cares about Chinese democracy. People just want to listen for the first album, and I think if I'm being like brutally honest, I think people just want to listen to Appetite for Destruction, really,
Oh yeah.
and just a few tracks from Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, because if you go and listen to Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, I don't think they're not bad, but they're not Appetite for Destruction. So
No.
this is a band that peaked really high, and then, like I said, Axl Rose on this album, he doesn't know if he wants to be industrial or if he wants to be Mamma Mia. So, so he's torn. So, but I did like Better. When I was listening to, I like that song, except like when you say it's Axl, like I can't feel bad for Axl. Like, dude, you like beat up your your exes. Like, and he like I can't feel bad for you. You're a crappy human being. Like, but yeah, and so I'm leaning like Tom too. Like, I don't think it's terrible, but I don't think it's good. I think it's just like what the kids today would call basic. So yeah, this is a basic album. It's not terrible. It's not great. I think if he would have named it Axl Rose and maybe like, I don't know. I think he worked. I think when you're working on something and you're redoing, like maybe who knows? Maybe the first draft of this album is the best one, and he just kept adding shit on it because he wasn't satisfied.
I bet that's the case.
Yeah. So it would be awesome if like just release the first cut. Like, let's see if it was better. But yeah, so you have it here. This is like a new one. Like it's not terribly bad. So it's mid. It's a mid album. It's it's there. It's not great. It's not terrible. So those are our thoughts. So for the next, is it that bad? Actually, we have people voted, and I'm gonna share my screen because I'm gonna show my YouTube channel. So I put 3 albums that I put Megadeth Risk, which got 31%, Limp Bizkit Results May Vary, which has 63%, and Stained 14 Shades of Grey at 6%. So there you have it, people. Our next Is It That Bad video will be, as voted by you, Limp Bizkit Results May Vary. So you asked for it, and that's going to be our next video. So again, I want to thank Tom the Green Man and JC Rock and Metal Reviews for joining me again for another video of the Is It That Bad series. So we want to know from you guys, what did you think of Chinese Democracy by Guns N' Roses? Comment, what are your least favorite tracks or your favorite tracks? Or are you like, do you think that this is an album that basically like was hyped too much and that's why it failed? So again, please subscribe to Tom the Green Man and JC Rock and Metal Reviews, and also subscribe to me. I'm nearing 700. So Tom, JC, thank you for joining me again.
You're welcome, man.
All right.
So until next time, people, we'll see you on the next Is It That Bad album review. And this is Hector, the Shield Dude from a couch, and I'll see you right here on the couch. Thank you and good night.